Your fear is making you fat. Okay, I know that's a harsh statement to come out and say, but it's the truth. And I'm talking to myself as well. But if you really want to trim the fat in your life, you've got to get rid of the fear. Fear is never going to go away completely. Well, let me not say that. That's not actually true. I cancel that actually. Fear can go away completely, but so often for people, for individuals, it's not going to go away completely. And fear is always going to attack. So you're always going to be attacked by fear. But if you actually decide to latch onto it, to invite it in, to invite it to set up shop at your home, it is making you fat and will continue to make you fat. So, what exactly does that mean? First of all, I'm Kenesha Hart. I am a podcast host for the Coach Up podcast and also a speaker. I talk about how you forge through fear. And that is what we're talking about today is fear and how it's making you fat. And ultimately, all of it is so that you can learn how to forge through fear. Because how many of us have some kind of fear in our lives? Let me talk about fear. Sometimes when we hear the word, we think about fear of rejection, which is talked about a lot nowadays, or fear of intimacy, or fear of failure, or even fear of success. All of those are inclusive. But I want you to think about the fear that we don't actually cause fear, but that actually is founded in fear. So, for example, when you have self-doubt, it is a fear that you'll be rejected, or is it a fear of what people think of you? Or it's a fear that you don't trust yourself, or that you are not as good as you think you are, or you're not as valuable and your skill is not as valuable as you think it is. That's all fear-based, right? When we think about fear of success, right? We often hear about fear of failure, but fear of success. If you talk about fear of success, you think about the fear that you can't sustain it. You're not good enough to sustain it. You're afraid that it may all crumble and you'll build it and then it'll all fall down. These are all founded in fear. There are different labels for them, they're different words, but ultimately all of that is fear. We have to learn that as fear comes, as fear attacks, as fear wants to set up shop in our home, in our brain, in our hearts, in our emotions, that we have to learn to forge through it. And that's what we're talking about today, because when you sit in that fear, when we are in that place of fear, when we allow those fears to govern what we do, what we say, what we think, how we act, how we don't act, it is going to make you fat. What do I mean by fat? What I mean by fat is it's going to make you fat in complacency. It's going to make you fat in misery. It's going to make you fat in the situation where you are. So, we hear it. If you don't change anything, then nothing will change. So if you continue to operate in the fear of rejection, and so therefore you then operate in self-doubt. So then you don't actually put yourself out there to do the thing or pursue the thing that you want to do. You will then make fat yourself in the complacency in the situation where you are. It will just continue to grow and expand where you are. And so if currently where you are is because of your self-doubt, you're not pursuing that job that you want, or the promotion that you want, or even the self-development that you want, or the conversation with your manager that you need to have in order to grow. If you're not doing that, then you're in the income bracket where you are that is fueling the lifestyle that you have, that is providing you with the comfort or discomfort in which you're living. And if you're okay with that, stay there. But if you're not, the more and the longer you stay there, the fatter you're getting in that situation, the more it's growing, right? Fat is an over expanse of what should be the norm, right? As we think about it, whenever we hear fat, we think about our body, right? So all of us have a body type, and all of us have a healthy body weight, body mass index that we should be at based on our structure, our height, our bone density, all of these things. Yet, some of us are a little over that. Some of us are a lot over that. Notice I said us. Either way, that fat is over and above what the norm should be, what is healthy for us. And so when we're fat in something, it means we're obese in a situation. We're obese in circumstances that should be trimmed. Because when we are growing, when we are moving, when we are operating by faith, when we are fueled by moving forward, which fear stops forward movement, we stay lean, we stay healthy, we stay in that state of where our body mass should be, to use the example of health and our physicality. We stay in that space so that we continue to move with agility and move forward. Because when you're healthy, when we're healthy, when our body mass index is right, when our weight is right, when we don't have an overabundance of tissue and what else do we have? Cells and all this other stuff on our body, we move quicker, right? We move with more agility. We can move forward faster. But when we're weighed down by fat, it slows us down. It causes us not to be able to move as quickly. It causes us to want to settle, right? That's the fat I'm talking about. Think about it in your life. So fear is fueling that fat in your life. It's causing you to settle. So let me give you a few examples, right? We can apply this to our physicality, as we talked about, our mentality, our emotions, the deficit of our emotions, all of that. So I'll give you some examples so you know what I'm talking about. First and foremost, fear in work. Okay, so you're scared you won't get the job, so you don't apply. Do you know what that fuels? It fuels complacency where you are. And how do you get complacent? Because you don't really want to be in the job you are in now. You know, or you believe, I won't say no, because if you knew, you'd be doing the work to move forward. You believe you have improved enough, or you're better than where you are right now. You have more to offer. But because you are operating out of fear of your boss rejecting you, what will people think if you go after that position? What if you don't get it? You're afraid you won't get it. Those fears that are causing you not to move forward with working to get that promotion or that next job or that different job creates complacency, because now in the position where you are, you're not happy. So you start to do work that's not as, it's not as good as it used to be. It's not as valuable as it used to be. It's not as innovative as it used to be, right? The extra stuff that you used to do to show off to your boss, or to make sure that you were recognized for the good work you were doing, or just because you were really passionate about the position that you're in, all that extra work that you were doing, you don't quite do all that anymore because you've gotten complacent. And that then starts to feed into a little bit of disappointment, discouragement, maybe even misery. And that can then start to feed into self-doubt. Is this all I'm available for? Is this all I'm good enough for? Does nobody else think that I can actually be a part of this, that I can actually move up? All this is fueled by fear, and it's just growing. That mindset is growing, that complacency is growing, that misery is growing, that self-doubt is growing. And that's just fat that is now accumulating because of your fear of rejection, or fear that you won't get the job, or if you put yourself out there, you won't be received well, or the fear of what people will think. That can happen in your job. Another example I'll give you is fear in relationships. And this can be any relationship. It can be a relationship with your spouse, your husband or your wife. It can be a relationship with your mom or your dad or your sister or your brother, a friend, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. It can be any of those relationships, a relationship with a coworker. But let's just say it's let's say you're single and you're looking to get into a relationship, or you're in a relationship. Let's say you're in a relationship. So this could apply to married or dating individuals. You have a fear of rejection. Now you think, I'm in the relationship. No, I don't have a fear of rejection because I'm in the relationship. This is how fear of rejection shows up. You don't share as much of your feelings and emotions as you would, because you're afraid of what your partner will think of you, or you're afraid your partner will think that you're being quote unquote extra, or you are what you have to say and what you have to think is inconsequential, or you're overthinking things, or you're being too emotional. You're afraid of what your partner will think of you when you share whatever it is that you really want to share, but you're too afraid to do so because of how you think that it will be received and how they will react. And so, therefore, you get fat on unfulfillment. You're not fulfilled in the relationship. You're in a relationship with an individual that you are looking to be a partner to you, that you can share your life with, and your life is you. The life is in the blood. So you have your blood, which means you are your life. So if you cannot share you fully and totally with that person, you feel unfulfilled in some place in the relationship. Maybe not necessarily as a whole person, I hope not. Our fulfillment comes in Jesus Christ. But in the relationship, you feel unfulfilled because you feel like the person to whom you want to be able to confide in and to put your trust in, because you're afraid that you will be rejected, you don't. You don't trust. You don't share. You don't step into that place of vulnerability. And so your unfulfillment gets fat, and you get more unfulfilled. Misery can come in this place as well. Disappointment grows. And all this is extra that's not healthy. It's not in that ideal center of healthy, as I say, that body mass, right? We're healthy, we're lean, in the space where we're supposed to be. You don't have that in the relationship because you're operating from a place of fear of rejection. That's how that can show up in relationships. You also may start to doubt the authenticity of the relationship. Is this really the person you're supposed to be with? That can be really scary in a marriage. And even in a committed relationship, that can be scary. But the scary part is that the reality, or is that the reality that you have created because of your fear of rejection? I'll give you one last example. Fear and faith. So, okay, what do I mean by that? Not necessarily only faith, as in people hear faith and automatically think religion. I'm talking about fear in trusting a process, or even truly trusting yourself. When we have a fear in faith, that means we are afraid that what we believe is not really true, or what we're hoping for is not really true. So it can even be a fear of trust in yourself. I'll tell you one of my favorite, it's not exactly a quote because I'm not going to quote it correctly, I don't think. One of the favorite sayings I've heard about building trust and building confidence is that you build confidence by doing what you say you're going to do, because then you begin to trust yourself, which then builds confidence that when you commit to doing something, you know you will do it. That is, when you don't do it, that's a fear in faith in yourself. Because when you say, I'm going to do something, and then you don't do it, then you have to ask yourself, why? Am I being lazy? Am I allowing, is it not a priority? Am I allowing something else to distract me? Which again goes back to it's not a priority. Do I not really think that I can do it? So then I just don't want to try. Fear in yourself, right? So it's a fear of faith because you don't really believe that you can accomplish, be whatever it is that you've dreamed of being. Because maybe you haven't thus far. You've made a commitment to yourself that you're going to do X, Y, and Z, and you didn't. So you made a commitment that you were going to, I'll use the easy one, you were going to work out 3 days a week, and you haven't. And the clothes that were in this closet last summer, we're coming up 3 months from summer now, and they're still not going to fit. So you don't even trust yourself in that. Or you say you're going to start your side hustle, And you have said that 30 times, and you have bought 30 courses, and you have started none. Or you started them, and then after the third one, you didn't do anymore. You just gave up. Fear and faith, that will build in your mind that those actions of saying you're going to do something and not, it builds in your mind that you're not actually trustworthy of your own self. And you don't actually believe that you can do this. And you don't actually believe that you can start a side hustle. You don't actually believe that you will ultimately be successful in losing those 20 pounds to get into those shorts or a bathing suit or shirt and tie that you want to, because you haven't done it to date, even though you've said you're going to. So you don't really believe that you're really even going to do it anymore. That's a fear and faith of trusting in yourself that you're going to do something. Believing your own word. So how does that fuel fat? That fuels fat of disappointment, right? None of us want to live with disappointment in life, but disappointments happen in life. That's just life. Things don't go as we want them to go. When we have expectations, we are prone to experience disappointment at some point in time. Only way not to have disappointment is to not have any expectations. And while that's an ideal area in some parts of the world and maybe life, that's not typically how we as humans operate. So we have expectations, and then when we don't meet our expectations, we are disappointed. When we don't have faith in ourselves, when we operate from a fear of faith, we are scared we're not going to do what we say we're going to do. That grows the disappointment within ourselves, and that just fattens every single time it happens. And it can be even something minute as you're making a to-do list for the day. Have you ever made a to-do list for the day? And then you woke up, you either made the to-do list the night before, you made it that morning, and you said, I'm committed. This is going to happen. I am going to do this today. I have 7 things on my to-do list. It's not that long. I'm going to get them done. And then by the end of the day, you did 1. And the other 6 were highly important. But you just did not commit to getting them done. Whether it was circumstances that you allowed to get in the way, or whether it was you looked at them and you thought they were just too hard, so you kept pushing them to the end of the day, and then you just never did them. Now you don't trust yourself. It's very small, but if you do that over and over and over and over and over and over, and 60 days from now, you have continued that pattern. Now when you make a to-do list, your thought process is, I'll probably get half of this done. You don't even believe that you'll get the whole thing done anymore. That's a fear in faith. That's a fear of success. That's a fear of competency, really. And you've created it, and now it has fattened into perpetual chronic disappointment that you only expect half work out of yourself. You make a to-do list, but you know going in, you're never going to get it done. We can't operate that way. We have to learn to trim the fat. And so we know that the fears are real, but the question is, what will you choose to make your reality? Right? So whatever the fear is that you're feeling, and there may be multiple ones of them, right? It may not just be one. You may be having multiple ones. You may experience fear in all the areas that I talked about, and then there's more, right? Because just giving you a few small examples. But although that fear may be real, it does not have to be our reality. What reality are you going to choose now that you know the fear, how fear can show up? And I'm just giving you a little bit, because I'll be back. We'll be having more of these conversations. So that's why today, I want you to just take one thing away and do one action. Now, before I give you that action, I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you one of my fears. My fear is trusting myself. So the fear and faith. And I'll give you a perfect example. In addition to having a podcast where I get to talk to amazing coaches in the coaching industry who are making 6 and 7 figures to help other coaches learn how they can build their business to that. In addition to that space, in addition to speaking about how you forge through fear in your life, in addition to both of those areas where I operate in the space of business, I also trade in the stock market. The challenge is I am still working on forging through the fear of trusting myself, because I will choose a trade that I want to take and then I don't take it because I'm second guessing myself, because I'm thinking about, I'm afraid of all the losses that I've taken, and I'm afraid that this next trade may be a loss. It may be a loss, even though I've done all the work to look at it, to analyze it, to determine, is it a good trade to take? It's a good trade to take. Yet, because I have doubt in myself based on decisions that I've made in the past that have not turned out well, because either I didn't plan well and still took the trade, so then it didn't work out. That's a double whammy of taking a loss occurred because I didn't plan and I was wrong, and the market did something that I didn't want it to do. So we have a double whammy of fear there. Or it may be that I did plan and the market just did what the market does, which is not always what my plan says it needs to do for the stock that I'm trading. So I'm dealing with those two, but I'm owning them as though I'm 100% responsible for them. Now, not planning, yes, absolutely. With the market doing what it does, I can't own that. But I'm internalizing that to say, it still caused a loss, and I'm afraid of loss. And so I don't want to really take this next trade because I'm afraid that my decision, my evaluation, my analyzation skills are not good enough to net a profit or to create a successful trade. And so therefore I miss out on some trades. Sometimes I muster up enough nerve to take the trade. And if it's a loss, I'm still working through that. And then if it's a profitable trade, okay, great, right? But ultimately, I'm not taking as many trades as I should because I have a fear of loss and a fear that the decision that I'm making is not going to turn out how I want it to. That is causing me to get more obese in mediocrity. And it's pushing me, unfortunately, closer to trading less, which can go all the way to trading none, which is not what I want to do, versus trading more. So I have to make the decision that if I have done the work, I have set the plan, I have analyzed it, I am going to operate through that fear and take the trade. And then let the chips fall where they may. That's where I am still getting fat in my fear and working to forge through that fear. But first, I had to identify that that's where I have fear so that I can then decide, next step, what am I going to do to start addressing the fear? So that's really what I want to do with you today. I want to leave you with one thing. I want you to do one thing today. I want you to think about the areas in your life right now that are causing you, that are on your mind. They may or may not be causing you stress. They may or may not be causing you anxiety. If they're causing you anxiety, definitely hone in. If they're causing you stress, definitely hone in. Because there's some fear likely that is fueling that stress and anxiety. I would say 99% or 95% at the least of fear is fueling that anxiety and that worry and that stress. So I want you to think about those areas of your life right now that you're feeling worried about, stressful about, or that are just constantly on your mind. And the one thing I want you to do is I want you to identify what is that root fear that's causing that stress, that anxiety, or that constant processing of that in your mind. I want you to think about it. I want you to write it down. And I want you to be very honest with yourself, because oftentimes we don't want to admit the fear, which if we don't admit it, we can't address it. So you got to actually admit it. But first we have to do some work to actually say, what is the real fear? And then as we continue these conversations, we'll talk about how to forge through those fears. And we'll talk about the full gamut. We'll talk about different types of fear. We'll talk about what the forging through that fear process looks like. We'll talk about once you forge through it, how you continue to move forward, experiencing less and less fear, or even if you experience it, how to respond to it less and respond in faith more. Faith in yourself, faith in the relationship, faith in your manager, faith in the process, faith in whatever it is. How to move forward believing that what you desire can occur. My disclaimer there is that I want what you desire to occur, that it's only good and it's helping people and positive, nothing negative, nothing hurting anybody. But that's the one thing I want you to do, one thing I want you to take away today. I want you to decide where, I want to get this right, I want you to decide where in your life, one area that you want to trim the fear-fueled fat out of your life. I'm going to say that again. Decide one place in your life where you want to trim the fear-fueled fat that is in your life. And I want you to commit to taking that fear, owning it, naming it, so that you know what you need to tackle as we move forward and talk more about this. Okay. I think that's it. I will leave you with this thought, that as you identify, evaluate, identify, and then name that fear, know that it can be trimmed. It does not have to continue to make your life fat. It can be eradicated. More will come, but this one can be eradicated. So I want you to hold on to that. And we'll talk more about this here as we talk about how you forge through fear. So today I encourage you, this is your first step in forging through fear to create the future that you truly desire. It is first to identify just one area, because you can't work on everything at the same time. Just one area where you want to trim the fat that is being fueled by fear in your life. And then we'll talk about how we do that, how we trim that fat going forward. This is Kanisha Hart. We talk about how you forge through fear. Let's go.